And I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily pursuing happiness. Happiness rises and falls in my life. I would say I am pursuing an interesting story. I want to write an interesting story with my choices, my actions, and the people that I hang out with, the people that I attract into my life. I want to weave one heck of a tale, and I want to get to the bottom of the question: who am I and why am I here? The art of aging mindfully. We train to master our own mind. Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jai Sugrim, and on today's episode, I want to talk to you about a handful of things, which include number one, the rebrand. Okay, the rebrand is official. I'll get more into that in a moment. Number two, I will also talk about the arc of my professional career and what draws me to this work of aging mindfully or making it my profession to guide people in the process of getting healthy and spiritually tuned up for the second half of life. I will also, number three, explain the meaning of the phrase, the jingle that you heard. We train to master our own mind. How did I come up with that? What was the genesis of it? And why is it such a wonderful tag for all of my work? And the fourth thing I'll discuss is the meat. Fourth, fifth, and sixth things are the meat and potatoes of what this podcast is about, which is primarily about health, prevention, mindset, and our sense of community. So, all of the biohacking stuff with health, spirituality, community. I'm going to talk about prevention in aging, the power of mindset in aging, and the power of a healthy community and social bonds as we age. So that is, in a nutshell, where we're going to head. And I'd like to start off with the idea of the rebrand. All of this work we are heading into is based on the previous incarnation of this podcast, which was called the Jai Sugram Method. I had 43 episodes up, and only 20 of those 43 carried over to fit the theme of this podcast going forward. So, going forward, we are called The Art of Aging Mindfully, but it's predicated on that broader concept of the Jai Sugram Method. So, some of that stuff didn't make the cut. So only 20 episodes have carried over. And we can look at this episode today on January, what is it, 26th of 2023 as kind of episode one of the podcast. But the other ones are the other 20 that made the cut are so good and so interesting. And the themes are so insightful that they had to carry over. Okay. So a sound engineer will go back and fix the jingle and the intros to all 20 of those in time. But for now, I've been healing from the flu and my voice has returned. So I'm excited to get back to this work. This is probably one of the favorite things in my life, aside from my fitness training, my yoga training, and my partner, spending time with her or a vacation. I just love to sit and explore a theme and prepare for sharing a theme. So, this is a passionate project for me, and I hope to reach as many people that wish to live an engaging and fulfilling second half of life, as many people as possible on board with that mission of creating a healthy community. So, the rebrand is official. You heard it in the jingle. 20 episodes have carried over, and going forward, we are going to be on that theme of health, prevention, fitness, spirituality, and community. Okay. So I'd like to next take a moment to talk about the arc of my professional career and what makes me so interested in this work. Um, I'd like to start with my childhood. As a child, um, I observed adults in a keen way. I distrusted adults for some reason. Adults seem to say one thing and do another. So I grew into an adult who always asks questions and questions someone's motives when I'm given directions or suggestions about how to live or what to do or what group to follow. I'm a guy that always pauses and asks questions because adults, since I was a kid, were not totally trustworthy. Very few of them seem to be inspiring. And so I've always wanted to go my own way from a very young age. I had that seeker mentality, that always interested in spirituality mentality, that always interested in, boy, I can't wait to grow up and do my own thing, which made me a little bit of a rebel for a while, but I've got that under control as I grew into manhood. I got that under control, but I just had a way of sort of always questioning the status quo. And in that light, at the age of 20 years old, I became a personal trainer because I was fascinated by fitness. As a child, I had the book, uh, The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I also had a couple books by Bruce Lee. And I always admired these guys who use their bodies as a vehicle for transformation and to pivot into something else. To learn the mastery of the body really impressed me. And I saw that in the work of Bruce Lee, especially with the philosophy behind his fighting system called Jeet Kune Do. And with Arnold and bodybuilding and how he used that to pivot into his movie career and then his political career. So the idea of doing something that you're passionate about has always been a value of mine. I studied in college the work of a social scientist, I guess you could say a philosopher, also Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is the grandfather of flow and flow states, and he studied the art of happiness and what led to happiness. And I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily pursuing happiness. Happiness rises and falls in my life. I would say I am pursuing an interesting story. I want to write an interesting story with my choices, my actions, and the people that I hang out with, the people that I attract into my life. I want to weave one heck of a tale, and I want to get to the bottom of the question: who am I and why am I here? So that spiritual side has always been an undercurrent that carries me through um, all of my seeking, my wandering. It's a place that I come home to. The spiritual reality is worth exploring over and over and over. And just when you think you have a grasp on it, it always evolves into something else with deeper meaning and deeper understanding with more life experience that I develop. So my career started as a personal trainer, and mainly because I never wanted to go into an office. I did that till my senior year of college, and in my senior year of college, I started to go on interviews for positions, and I was very unattracted by what was presented to me as a path of life. It's like if you'll work for 5 years in this cubicle, then you'll get the corner office, and then you'll graduate to this part of the office, and then you'll do this, wearing clothes you don't like and doing things you don't like to do for money. So I knew that I love fitness. I loved health. I loved the body. I loved how the body and the mind sort of pushed each other. Sometimes it's the body pushing the mind, and sometimes it's the mind pushing the body. So I got into personal training, and 5 years later, 3 years later, I took a year off and I went to massage school for a year, became a New York State licensed massage therapist. And each of these stages of my career piggybacked on to the next. Okay. So the knowledge and study of a previous stage always added to the next incarnation or addition to my career. And I never stopped doing the base thing, which is personal training. I've been a personal trainer for 28 years consistently. So then when I was like a few years later, like 25, I added massage. 24, I would say I added massage therapy. And then at age 31 or 30, I got certified as a yoga teacher with Jivamukti Yoga School in New York City. And so yoga and meditation became a part of my repertoire. So I'm a trainer, a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, and a meditation guide. And I have a strong, strong background, 15 years also of studying Amazonian shamanism with various teachers, but I eventually landed with one guy named Don Diego, and I became a student of his for 10 years. And so that trainer, massage therapist, yoga teacher with a blend of shamanism under the feather and the cap is what basically the trajectory that I've been on. But as I've worked with clients one on one, I've worked with people who are always in the second half of life. Now, those are my one on one clients. And what that does for a young person is it gives you a lot of insight and the opportunity to not only learn from books and TV shows and YouTube videos, but to learn directly from another person's experience. When you train or massage someone or teach them yoga, you're in a room with just each other, and it's like the walls um, come down. It's like the barriers that the front that we put up to the world. You get into a real authentic space. And people are very personal. You know this from your hairdresser. You talk at length with your hairdresser about very personal things sometimes. So I had that opportunity to get people's stories and to learn directly from their wisdom and the experience that they shared with me. And so, I'm known as a international yoga teacher because of the Yoga Sutra Now, the TV show I did in 2012 that was in 100 million American homes and repurposed in 20 different countries. But I've always been a coach to those in the second half of life. And as I approached 40, I noticed that my body started to change. I had to tweak my training. The mindset and priorities were starting to shift in different ways. I wanted to be more rooted and stable and travel less. So, as these changes came on, I realized that I needed to shape my brand to reflect what was my deeper interest, which is to be in the demographic and guide those in the life stage that I am at or further than me. So to pivot away from large classes to the youth that are trying to master their bodies. I mean, I've worked with the New York Yankees and a lot of professional athletes, but to move away from mastery necessarily of the body to teach that, to teach more prevention, mindset, and authentic connection. To shift gears is the key to the rebrand. And my experience of having worked with people one on one is what motivates me. I've only had authentic connections, I've only had raw honesty, and I've been consistent about who I am with my clients for 28 years. I never had a royal spiritual awakening and left my office job to redesign my life as a health coach. It just evolved from my natural interest. And in this light, I consider myself to be very, very, very lucky. Okay, so let's move on now. I want to talk about the meaning of the phrase "we train to master our own mind." Okay, this is a deep, 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 profound phrase. This phrase, "we train to master our own mind," refers to the idea that we should strive to control and direct our own thoughts rather than being controlled by them. This means not being a slave to our desires, the sensations of the body, or external temptations that can pull us away from our sense of balance and clarity. Instead, we should train ourselves to focus our minds and cultivate positive patterns of thought that can lead us towards a more fulfilling and interesting life. Okay, so this is not letting the body have its way with you, not giving it food every time the wind blows and the desire for eating rises. Okay, not giving the body sleep exactly when it wants it. Uh, Instead, exerting mind over matter, training to master our mind. I believe that consciousness is primary and matter rises out of consciousness. So, thoughts are seeds that eventually become actions, and these actions create our identity, the way we see ourselves, and the way we see ourselves is who we become in the world. So, thoughts, we must tend to our thoughts, and eventually, it's near impossible in this busy world, but to through line, the aim is to master our own mind. And it takes the weight off of judging others and thinking that others have to be a certain way in order for us to try to make sense of each other. Um, this phrase may involve practices such as yoga, breath control, meditation, or any mental discipline that helps us to develop greater control over our thoughts and emotions. We need space. We need space between uh, a thought arising and our action. And usually that's one deep breath. One deep breath can change the way we respond to a situation. So, by mastering our own mind, we can better navigate the challenges of life with grace and clarity and find greater happiness and fulfillment in the process. Okay? And I think that's what I'm going for is again a great story and fulfillment. I came up with this phrase after I sat in my first Vipassana meditation training. Um, I would say it's about 6 or 7 years ago. I went to Shelburne, Massachusetts to do a 10-day silent retreat. And it was a very challenging retreat where you hand in your cell phone, you hand in your laptop, and it's a Buddhist center for meditation. And they teach you the Buddha's technique for quieting the mind and eventually silencing the mind. And you meditate for 12 to 14 hours per day in silence, no talking for the 10 days. And it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And on the seventh day of this meditation, I had an enormous realization that, wow, the weight of my own karma, the weight of my own actions, the purification of my own mind is such a huge, huge, huge task all unto itself. It leaves no time to judge others. It leaves no time to worry about what other people are doing or why they're doing it. That my own task is going to take, if I'm lucky, many lifetimes to fix and adjust my own mind. That was the insight that rose from all of that silence and all of that contemplation is that my storehouse of karmas is massive and I should focus on my own mind. So when I left that meditation retreat and came back home to New York, I started to play around with the phraseology of what my yoga practice and meditation practice was actually about. And one day it just rose out we train to master our own mind. And it's been sticky, it's been catchy and I channeled it, so I hooked into it, and it is ours as a community. It sums up the nature of the work we are doing with each practice, with each authentic connection, and with the light of each new day. We are on task. We know why we're here, and what we're doing. So that is in a nutshell, the thoughts behind the phrase, and it's a very inspiring phrase. I think you have to have a few key language patterns that motivate you in life. Um, like another phrase that's empowering is nothing tastes as good as being super fit feels. So that checks me at the door to help me minimize the intake of sugar and processed foods. I ask myself, what is this really about? Why am I about to eat this thing? Do I really need this food that is not healthy? Is the taste worth the cost that it's going to put inflammation in my body and have an adverse reaction to my health? So all we need is space in our mind, and the training that we do creates space in between our thoughts, and that space is really can boil down to being our true identity. The space in between thoughts is yoga, or identity with our true self. So, going forward, what will this podcast be about? This podcast will be a lot about the importance of prevention in aging. Taking preventive measures to maintain health and well being is important at any age, but it becomes increasingly important as we get older. The body's systems and processes naturally begin to decline with age. This is called senescence, and you'll become familiar on this podcast with the term called senescent cells. And basically, senescent cells, also called known as zombie cells, senescent cells don't replicate in a healthy way. They stop replicating, but they still metabolize energy and they produce inflammation. They're old, defunct cells. If you've ever looked at a house plant that you've neglected for a while and you see yellow leaves and brown leaves, or more importantly, partially yellow and partially green leaves, those are senescent cells. They're on their way to death, but they're not dying, and they're using energy and they're creating inflammation. They are toxic to the body. So we start to experience senescence in the second half of life. It's just nature's first sign that we are experiencing some entropy. Okay, so by taking preventive measures, we can help to offset this decline and maintain our health and well being for much longer than the average. And there are many different ways to take preventive measures to maintain health and well being. Some of those things include the following: you can eat a healthy diet. Now, this healthy diet is personalized. Generally, the data shows that the diet is rich in fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins to maintain healthy energy levels. They also support brain functions and promote overall health and well being. You want whole foods. Now, some people will have to get into the bio individuality, okay, of program design in terms of how to exercise and, more importantly, how to eat. Like spinach, for example, is loaded with oxalates. So, spinach, while it may be an excellent food for one person, may be quite unhealthy for the next person. And the way to figure out what is right for your body is to test the genome and the epigenome. So the test I use is called Viome, and it's you send a fecal and they test it in the lab, and you can find out all the foods that are right for you, your biological age, and the supplements that are appropriate for your genetic profile on the spectrum of possibilities. So, along with taking preventive measures, we continue with exercising regularly. It's super important to exercise regularly. This will strengthen the muscles and bones, improve cardiovascular health, and maintain flexibility and balance, mainly your mobility. The balance is the first to go with age. You'll notice the nerves getting weak and your body getting shaky. So it's really important to train so that your posture is held together in the second half of life so you can express yourself with the presence of I am here, I am enough, I am whole, I am complete now. I know my true nature, I know who I am. So you cannot get one over on me and hoodwink me. I know my nature as a spiritual, eternal being. Regular exercise puts us in our power position. So I can't recommend, as far as prevention goes, consistent exercise. My go to for exercise is running, yoga, and weightlifting, strength training. Those are the holy grail, the trifecta to address the musculoskeletal system and the bones and the tendons. You weight train to address the heart and the blood vessels and capillarization. You do cardio. I run. You can ride a bike. You can swim. You can do any form of cardio. Ability, I lean on yoga. Okay. Yoga is also um, very much a way to capture my mind and put it in a positive groove. So I would recommend some interplay of strength training, cardiovascular work, and mobility work or yoga training. Okay. Along the lines of prevention, we want to get enough sleep. Okay. The brain creates waste. We call this waste beta amyloid plaque. When we sleep, we process and clean this waste. It's essential. Sleep is essential for maintaining physical and mental health. It helps to repair and restore the body. It can also improve our mood, our memory, and overall cognitive function. So get your sleep, folks. I use the Whoop strap. The Whoop strap is a sponsor of this podcast, and it monitors many, many things. The keys that I use it for is to monitor my sleep and my heart rate variability. These two things tell me if I should modify my training program for that day. If like today, my heart rate variability is really low because I trained 3 times yesterday and I had a very high strain. So I didn't fully recover. So all I did was yoga this morning, and I may just cap it off there or do a little more mobility work at the end of the day. So adequate sleep is essential. Along the lines of prevention, we move on to hydration. Stay hydrated. Okay. I'm currently on a 75-day water challenge where I drink only water for 75 days. So no coffee, no teas, no caffeine, basically, is what I wanted to avoid. And it's important for maintaining your energy levels, flushing toxins from the body, and for overall health and well being. The last thing on prevention I will mention is to have a sense of energy management. Okay, so energy management is thinking along the lines of coiling your energy and expressing your energy, coiling your energy and expressing it. Before I was 40, I could go full throttle all the time, all day, every day, and repeat and catch up on sleep later. I find myself not being able to go full stop like that anymore. I'm 47 years old, so I'm open to things like naps. On certain days, I might take a 20-minute nap to reboot my self in between bouts of work. I see one-on-one clients in person on Zoom. I lead webinars. I teach on Zoom. I go to the gym to meet a trainer. I go to the sauna. So I'm constantly in motion, and my work is varied. And then I work on my own body. So I train really hard. And to plow through the day in a nonstop way is totally ridiculous. I think of it as energy management. And I look at my calendar And if it's a very intense day, today is a lighter day for me, which is why I'm recording. And tomorrow is a more vitalized, intense day. So I have to plan in periods of rest where I coil my energy so that it can then be expressed. Okay, so let's talk now about another meat and potatoes section of this podcast, which is the power of mindset in aging mindfully. Okay, when I got into my 40s, I noticed a shift in my body, my energy levels, my ability to sorry for the coughing here. I just my throat is still a little feathery and has a little um, sort of, this is the third or second day since I've beat the flu, where I'm back on my feet after 2 weeks of being put down with a really intense lung sort of infection that's on its way out. But my throat still feels a little dry with the heat on here in the winter, and the air is rising to my office. So back to the story. I chose to take aging standing up. I acknowledged that I was entering into the second half of life. Now I plan to live to 108 or 120, and I'm doing everything in my power. And the time that I'm born in allows me to say that this is realistic because of the additions and options we're going to have because of artificial intelligence and medical breakthroughs and discoveries. Aging is now being viewed as a disease. And as such, what are the measures of prevention or health extension of what is possible? And more will be possible in this time. So, my lifestyle of having worked out since age 13, I feel that I have good fortune. I know I have incredible genetics, and I'm living in an incredibly scientific time with fascinating drugs and technologies that are going to be available to extend health span. So I'm taking this standing up. I am fine with the mindset of having tasted everything the world has to offer. I am totally fine with minimizing my use of sugar, minimizing my use of alcohol and processed foods. I can part ways with those things. And it is not a fear based reaction. It's just, I know that if I master my mind and reset and trim away the unessentials, that I can live a very long, healthy, and fulfilling life. And in many ways, I feel that my best work is yet to come from me, out of me, because I have only recently felt psychologically mature. I know that sounds weird for someone who's 47, but if you imagine that I live to 108 or to 120, it is possible that I may just be getting started. So, by taking this standing up, I'm doing all of the research on the face of the planet from the leading experts on longevity and health sciences to sort of not stave off time in a fearful way, but to, out of a curious point of view, to see what is possible. That kid who wanted to do a job that he loved. Okay. So to keep that childish sense of wonder and possibility open in the second half of life, for that to not be squelched, is the way I'm facing the second half of life. I'm taking it standing up. I'm being honest about what's happening, but I'm testing the edges of fitness, mindfulness, and anti-aging. I want to be a guinea pig. I want to see what is possible. So my childhood outlook is still alive. The possibility frame is still alive. Wanting to get the most out of life is still alive. So for me, it's more about shifting gears and adapting to a new life stage. Um, it is also important in this mindset of aging well to have a positive, proactive outlook. Um, it's all about structured experiments. So I said the 75-day water challenge. I wonder what it would be like to not take a coffee for 75 days. And I'm surprised that instead of making a ritual coffee in the morning, I am shooting down 40 ounces of water after sleeping, and my energy levels are amazing or even better, and my mental clarity is soaring. So, this positive, proactive approach towards structured experiments that give feedback that we can then tweak and adjust in subsequent programs. Like, I'm in a laboratory, my life is a work of art. And this positive, proactive mindset towards aging is going to help continue the idea that life is art and that I am co creating my life. I'm involved in the process of how my life turns out. I'm consciously directing it. Um, so, the last segment I'd like to talk about is this idea that the art of aging mindfully is a community. Right now, as a community, the mission is to support and empower individuals as they age. So I'm interested in coaching and guiding anyone in the second half of life. You can be 80, 90. I've worked with 3 90-year-olds in my career. Never a centenarian, but I've coached a lot of younger people. And if young people are into the long-term vision of their life, they're welcome to be a part of the community. But it's really to support and empower those in the second half of life. We meet in my classes in the Hudson Valley and New York City, actual in person classes. The community meets on yoga and movement retreats, mindfulness retreats, mindful movement retreats. And for our morning practices on Zoom, I teach 3 classes a week on Zoom, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they are called yogic conditioning classes. I whisper sweet spiritual nothings into your ear while you do rather profound strengthening, mobility, and balance exercises in a sort of high intensity format, which is a circuit training where the heart rate goes up. You definitely break a sweat, and variations are offered for each ability level from novice to expert. So from beginner to advanced. So we meet on Zoom, and we have monthly Zoom gatherings. And I encourage you, if you are interested in becoming a part of this community, to please join my Sunday newsletter. Every Sunday, a spiritually tuned email with tips for meditation, health, mindfulness practices are all the spiritual stuff is all in that email, spiritually tuned email. So you go to my website, theartofagingmindfully.com, and just fill out the form at the top, and you'll be on the mailing list to always keep abreast of the community news and gatherings. And we all need a sense of, I was faced with the idea of renunciation and monkhood and living like a monk. I have actually tried renunciation, giving all of my belongings away. I did that in 2013, where everything I owned could fit on one motorcycle. And although it was quite liberating, it was too early. My karma pulled me back to the world and to my work in the world, which is far from done. So I have work to do in this world before I can think of renouncing the world. And the world needs good healers to step up. And I have, with the vast experience and background and training and study that I have stepped up to the plate to take a swing. And my goal is to reach as many people as possible. So, in conclusion, we have to Uh, take a proactive approach to life. Prevention, an ounce of prevention, my mother used to say as a kid, is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Wow, that makes so much sense now. Okay, and we have to have the mindset of training to master our own mind. That's very personal and that flowers in each practitioner's consciousness. The more discipline and the more experience that one develops. The second half of life is about it's like a sieve. You pause, you sieve out what you don't need, you strain out what you don't need, you keep what is useful, and then you add new things, new experiments. So the mindset of training on that personal note with the contents of your own mind to purify and clean your own mind is where it's at. And m- lastly, we are a community. We are a community to support one another, to encourage one another, and inspire one another. So I'm going to close with a notion that you can find in the Hermetic Principles, or you can find it in yoga. I will read the first Hermetic principle. There are seven. Okay, these are from an ancient Egyptian sage, Hermes Trismegistus. And these principles are believed to be the underlying principles that govern the universe and all of its workings. I'm just going to read the first one because it ties into what we've talked about. Then I'll spin it into a yogic framework, which is my background. But I like how it's presented by in the Hermetic principles. The principle of mentalism. This principle states that the universe is a manifestation of the mind and that everything in the universe is created by thought. I'm going to read it again. This principle states that the universe is a manifestation of the mind and that everything in the universe is created by thought. In all of the work I've done, in all of the self exploration, all of the sadhanas, those conscious spiritual practice, the 100 or more ayahuasca ceremonies I've sat in, this is so resonant for me. It is so profound in how my spiritual experience has flowered, how I've developed more spiritual maturity with time, with more practice. I find this to be a pillar of reality that the universe is a manifestation of the mind. And when we are very, very old and the body is fading, it is the mind we have made is the mind we will retain and keep. So we are working on our thoughts and we watch our thoughts, we remain vigilant. We direct our mind into as positive a groove as possible. When the shadow rises to take us down, we bow to it. We don't let it destroy us. We do our best to make better bad choices and get through the storm. So we are training to have a sense of self control, a sense of poise. So, on that note, I leave you with the principle of mentalism. Sometimes you can think of in yoga, we are Brahman, we are all God, we are all one consciousness experiencing itself from different positions, different points of view. However, you want to stoke that fire and that flame, it is a good thought to put in your pipe and smoke. Um, is the principle of mentalism, or that the universe is a manifestation of mind, which would get us to really concentrate our own minds. All right, so that is today's show in a nutshell, everybody. That is all I have. I am very, very excited about this year. I'm excited about the podcast. You can count on me for a rhythm of one new show per week going forward, at least one new show per week. And the themes will be very engaging. I won't belabor the points and make the show longer than it needs to be to get that day's theme across. And again, I encourage you to share this episode and to share this podcast with anyone that is interested in aging mindfully and facing the second half of life standing up and standing strong and standing in their power, and to engage the idea that we want to be excellent contributors to society, even in the second half of life, that we are not done. We have more creativity coming forth based on the wisdom of our experience. So, this podcast is sponsored by Commons CBD. I use CBD daily for exercise induced inflammation and good sleep. It is sponsored by the Whoop Strap. I use that as my health monitor. I mainly look at my heart. It's how it's functioning each day, the resting heart rate, the heart rate variability, and I monitor my sleep and recovery in depth, and also my strain, how hard I've worked. I try not to overdo it 3 hard days in a row. I'll have a light day to punctuate 2 hard days. So those links are in the show notes. If you want to get CBD, you can filter that through Commons and support the show. You can also show your support for the show at my Patreon, patreon.com/Jai Sugrum. That's also in the show notes. Becoming a contributor at the Patreon gives you access to my live classes on Zoom. So all you have to do is turn on your computer, roll out a mat, and have 2 yoga blocks, and you're going to be in great shape. You're going to be mobile, flexible, and strong. These are the things we need as the body starts to feel the call of gravity and the earth, which wants the materials it has loaned us. It wants the materials back. So gravity calls for this drooping, this rounding of the spine. But you can stand up straight and be in your power with preventive mindset and with training and self-control. So I thank you for tuning in today, and I wish you a brilliant, super fantastic, spectacular rest of your day. Take care, everybody. Namaste.